evening, Asia. Good evening, America. You're watching World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar.
And I'm Hem Korsara, and on the show today, in news from West Asia, according to officials, Israel has demanded the release of 34 hostages in the first stage of the ceasefire deal on humanitarian grounds, while in return, Israel will release an unconfirmed number of Palestinian security prisoners, including some who are serving life sentences. We'll get you more from that front on the show today.
And also on the show, from our coverage of the Russia-Ukraine war, Britain has unveiled a package of $286 million in new military aid to Ukraine for next year. And this comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with NATO chief Mark Rutte and key European leaders in Brussels to strategize over Russia's war ahead of Donald Trump's return to the White House. Of course, we'll get you all the details on that, but first the headlines.
A new constitution that will ensure that it is a social contract, a new social contract for all Syrians, and that we will have free and fair elections.
UN envoy to Syria calls for free and fair elections in the country after the ouster of President Bashar al-Assad, voicing hope for a political solution for Kurdish-held areas.
Turkey says world powers should remove the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham group, which seized power in Syria, from their terror watch list. Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan urges the international community and the United Nations.
Israel seeks the release of 34 hostages in the first stage of ceasefire deal, claims Hezbollah-affiliated Al Mayadeen News, citing a Hamas official. Israel to release the Palestinian security prisoners in return.
Britain unveils $286 million package of new military aid to Ukraine for next year, including drones, boats, and air defense systems. This move comes after UK Defense Secretary John Healey visits Kiev on Wednesday.
North Korea lashes out at the United States and its allies for criticizing its support for Russia's war in Ukraine, including the deployment of troops, rejecting what it had called a reckless provocation.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump urges Republican lawmakers to reject a cross-party deal to avert a fast-looming government shutdown, as the White House accused him of playing politics.
American Congressman Sri Thanedar calls on U.S. Departments of Treasury and State to impose sanctions on those perpetrating heinous acts against minorities in Bangladesh.
An Indian Navy speedboat undergoing tests in the seas off Mumbai loses control and slams into a ferry, killing 13 people. Navy say engine malfunction caused accident. One naval service member among the dead.
A private plane crashes after landing at an airport on the outskirts of Buenos Aires, killing both pilot and the co-pilot. People inside a building struck by the plane rescued by firefighters.
Kylian Mbappe finally finds his scoring boots as Real Madrid are crowned the Intercontinental Cup champions after beating Mexico's Pachuca 3-0 in Doha.
Starting with news from West Asia, the UN envoy to Syria has called for free and fair elections after the ouster of President Bashar al-Assad.
Addressing reporters in Damascus, UN Special Envoy Geir Pedersen hoped to see the beginning of a new Syria, one that he said will adopt a new constitution and that will have free and fair election when the time comes.
His comments come a day after members of the UN Security Council in a statement called for the implementation of an inclusive and Syrian-led and Syrian-owned political process that they said should meet the legitimate aspirations of all Syrians.
Meanwhile, Turkey rejected U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's claim that the rebel ouster of al-Assad was an unfriendly takeover by Ankara.
Now, in an interview with broadcaster Al Jazeera, Turkey's foreign minister Hakan Fidan said that if there's any takeover, it's the will of the Syrian people which is taking over now. He also refuted Trump's claim that Turkey would be the power that would rule Syria in the end, saying it would be the last thing they would want to see. Further, Fidan said that Turkey would have no reason to launch an offensive against the Kurdish forces if the new rulers properly address the issue of the groups whom Ankara brands as terrorists.
لابد أن نعيد هذه البلد يعني عزيزة وشامخة مطمئنة.
Now, Syrian War Matter said 21 pro-Turkey fighters were killed on Wednesday after they attacked a Kurdish-led position near a flashpoint northern town despite a U.S. brokered ceasefire extension in the area.
Now, the Britain-based observatory, which has a network of sources inside Syria, said the attack included support from Turkish reconnaissance aircraft and was followed by heavy clashes with heavy and medium weapons.
Now, meanwhile, Turkey President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has said that the country would together work with Lebanon on Syria. He was addressing a press conference alongside Lebanon Prime Minister Najib Mikati. Erdogan stressed that the stability of Syria means the stability of the region.
Syria is slowly getting back on its feet. The first commercial flight since the ouster of al-Assad took off from Damascus airport for Aleppo in the country's north on Wednesday. 43 people, including journalists, were on board the Syrian airplane.
Now, also neighboring Jordan has reported the Jaber border crossing for trade, resuming the flow of goods and freight traffic between the two countries.
For more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Listen to this.
While Donald Trump suggested that Ankara is controlling the anti-Assad movement, Turkish foreign minister dismissed these claims, saying that the situation unfolding in Syria is at the will of the Syrian people. He added that Turkey does not aim to dominate Syria, emphasizing on regional cooperation over power struggles. Turkey's long-standing support for Syrian rebels on the one hand and hosting refugees on the other perhaps brings this issue to the forefront. But this back and forth really reveals the tension between U.S. perception and Turkey's regional ambitions as well, while Syria's future remains very fluid and uncertain. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Now, in other news from West Asia, Israel has sought the release of 34 hostages in the first stage of ceasefire deal in Gaza.
This as per the Hezbollah-affiliated Al Mayadin news outlet, citing an anonymous Hamas official.
Now, these 34 hostages include all remaining women and children, female IDF soldiers, and the sick and elderly.
Well, according to this report, Israel in return will release an unconfirmed number of Palestinian security prisoners, including some serving life sentences.
The Hamas official tells Al Mayadin that during the first 42-day phase of the ceasefire, Israel will allow increased flow of humanitarian aid to enter the Strip, as well as the equipment needed to repair and rebuild Gaza's hospitals and public facilities.
The official further claims that Israel has also agreed to withdraw from the densely populated areas in the Strip during this phase. He says that while all parties have agreed to reopen the Rafah crossing on the border with Egypt during the first phase, the issue of who will maintain control of the crossing is yet to be resolved.
Meanwhile, Israeli Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi has said that the Israeli army is exerting pressure on Hamas daily, driving it into greater distress to ensure the return of the 100 hostages.
We are dismantling Hamas and targeting its infrastructure and forces so that there will never be another October 7th. We are exerting pressure on Hamas daily, driving it into greater distress to ensure the return of the 100 hostages, hopefully alive, and for those who are not, to provide them a burial in Israel.
Now, the military released video of Halevi visiting forces in the southern Gaza Strip of Rafah on Wednesday. Israel ordered Palestinians to evacuate another section of central Gaza ahead of an offensive in the built-up Bridge refugee camp, even as Israel and Hamas appeared to inch closer to a ceasefire in the 14-month war.
Israeli bombardment and offensives in Gaza have killed more than 45,000 Palestinians during the war, and this is according to the Gaza Health Ministry. The ministry's tally does not distinguish between combatants and civilians, but it says more than half of the dead were women and children.
Furthermore, the United Nations senior expert on torture visited for the first time the southern Israeli kibbutz communities attacked on the 7th of October 2023 to offer support to the families of Israelis abducted by Hamas fighters to the Gaza Strip. The UN Special Rapporteur Alice Jill Edwards said that she has written to the Palestinian Authority about independent and verifiable reports of sexual torture and violence that occurred on the 7th of October. She said she would also speak to Israeli authorities about credible allegations of torture and mistreatment of Palestinians in Israeli detention.
You know, everybody counts, and every life counts, and we should preserve that, and that is the essence of human rights. It's not about picking sides. The side is of human rights and the people's right to live in safety, peace, and security.
According to Israel, Hamas fighters killed some 1,200 people and seized more than 250 hostages, of whom 100 remain captive.
And Britain, France and Germany have accused Iran of increasing its stockpile of highly enriched uranium to unprecedented levels without any credible civilian justification.
The three countries known as the E3 said in a statement ahead of a UN Security Council meeting on Tehran's nuclear program that Iran must reverse its nuclear escalation.
There is no justification for Iran's stockpiling of high-enriched uranium, which gives it the capability to rapidly produce enough fissile material for multiple nuclear weapons.
Moreover, the nuclear watchdog, International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA, also said that Iran increased its manufacturing of enriched uranium such that it is the only non-nuclear weapon state to possess uranium enriched to 60%.
Last week, Berlin, London and Paris raised the prospect of using a mechanism in a landmark 2015 deal on Iran's nuclear program that allows signatories to reimpose sanctions which had been eased. That deal with Tehran traded sanctions relief for limits on its nuclear program. It was signed by Iran on one side and France, Germany, Britain, China, Russia and the United States on the other.
Now, but in 2018, then U.S. President Donald Trump pulled the United States out of the agreement and reimposed U.S. sanctions against Iran. Meanwhile, Iran's ambassador to the UN, Amir Iravani, said that it was Western countries, not Iran, that had failed to honor their commitments.
The unfounded accusation made against Iran today by the United States, United Kingdom, France and Germany cannot distort the fact on the ground, nor serve to obscure or justify their own failures in fulfilling their commitment on the JCPOA. Therefore, allegations regarding Iran's Non-compliance are not only factually incorrect, but also rely on arbitrary and misleading interpretations of the JCPOA.
Iran has repeatedly said that it has the right to nuclear energy for peaceful purposes and has consistently denied any ambition of developing weapons capabilities.
All right, shifting our focus now, as the war between Russia and Ukraine rages on, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky held discussion with NATO chief Mark Rutte.
The talks focused on bolstering Kyiv's defenses and security on the battlefield. And this meeting comes ahead of the EU summit that's set to be held on Thursday.
Everything now to make sure that when it comes to air defense, when it comes to other weapon systems, that we make sure that we provide whatever we can. We know your request, Volodymyr, to make sure that I think it is 19 systems are delivered to Ukraine to protect the critical infrastructure.
Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky also met with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron to discuss the situation in Ukraine.
In a post on social media platform X, Zelensky shared that he held talks with his French counterpart over strengthening Ukraine's position against Russian aggression. He also added that reliable guarantees are essential for ensuring peace.
Meanwhile, United Kingdom's Foreign Minister David Lammy asked allies in Europe to ramp up their support for Ukraine that would put the country in a strong position in 2025.
Putin is showing no signs of ending this merciless, aggressive war that's causing bloodshed, hardship and pain across Ukraine, and of course for the whole of Europe as we deal with the spectre of his new imperialism and aggression. We meet today with the Secretary General of NATO and of course Zelensky and close European allies to discuss what further support we give to Zelensky, what further military support, what further finances are necessary to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position as we head in and through 2025.
In addition to this, the UK has announced a fresh military aid of $286 million to Ukraine next year. This includes drones, boats and air defense systems.
Meanwhile, North Korea has hit back at the reckless provocation by the United States and its allies for denouncing the country's support for Russia in its war against Ukraine. According to a statement, North Korea said that the EU and its allies are distorting and tarnishing its cooperative ties with Russia. The statement comes after the EU, UK, US, and several other nations raised concerns over North Korea's involvement in the war. They said that Pyongyang's growing support for Russia constituted a dangerous expansion of the conflict with serious consequences for European and Indo-Pacific security. They also urged North Korea to cease all assistance, including withdrawal of troops from Russia.
Right and left-leaning European leaders are facing a crisis of confidence as they struggle to maintain public support.
Now, leaders like Starmer, Macron, Scholz and Sanchez are seeing a significant drop in popularity, sparking concerns about their leadership and the future of European politics.
In the UK, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer's approval ratings have nosedived. A recent Ipsos survey has revealed that while 61% have expressed dissatisfaction with his performance, only 27% have expressed satisfaction.
Now, this has made him the most unpopular Prime Minister after 5 months in Downing Street since the late 1970s.
In France, Emmanuel Macron's government has been facing significant challenges after his party's defeat in the 2024 European Parliament elections and disastrous performance in the snap elections in France. In a bid to stabilize France and steer its economy, Macron has appointed François Bayrou as the new Prime Minister.
The appointment comes after Michel Barnier's government was toppled in a no-confidence vote following tensions over public finances.
While centrist leader Bayrou's top priority is to get France's 2025 budget approved without facing a no-confidence vote, Macron recently vowed to remain in office till the end of his 5-year term in May 2027.
Now, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is also facing the heat after his three-party coalition government collapsed due to a budget dispute. Scholz lost a confidence vote in the Bundestag in November, with 394 ballots against him, 207 in his favor, and 116 absentations. Germany now heads for snap elections on February 23rd, 2025, with Scholz hoping to win and form a new coalition under his leadership.
Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez is facing a tough time dealing with several legal investigations involving those close to him, including his wife, brother, and former transport minister. His wife, Begoña Gomez, is accused of corruption and influence peddling related to her time at Madrid's university.
While his brother David is being investigated for embezzlement, influence peddling, and tax fraud. Former Transport Minister José Luis Ábalos is under investigation for allegedly taking kickbacks for contracts during the COVID-19 pandemic.
While the investigations have led to increased scrutiny and dented the image of Sanchez's leftist government, him and his Socialist Party have dismissed the cases as baseless and part of a right-wing smear campaign. Recently, the Spanish left-wing parliamentary bloc has temporarily blocked a proposal for a no-confidence vote against Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. The proposal was put forward by the Catalonia party.
Now, with the rise of the far-right parties across Europe, leaving many left-leaning leaders struggling to connect with voters amid the impact of Russia-Ukraine war and West Asia conflict, it remains to be seen if European left-leaning leaders make a comeback. All right, another global news. South Korea's corruption watchdog is considering a second summons and possible arrest of Yoon Suk-yeol.
Now, Yoon is facing charges of insurrection and abuse of power. This comes after Yoon Suk-yeol failed to appear before Corruption Investigation Office.
Now, Chief of Corruption Watchdog said he is also reviewing whether to issue an arrest warrant, but CIO Chief Oh Dong-woon told Parliament that they were also reviewing whether to issue an arrest warrant. Meanwhile, Yoon's legal team has reportedly argued that he did not commit any insurrection and has vowed to fight the charges in court.
South Korea's Constitutional Court is separately deliberating whether to uphold Yoon's impeachment. The court on Wednesday ordered Yoon to submit the martial law decree he issued 2 weeks ago, as well as the records as cabinet meetings held directly before and after the announcement. The judges have about 6 months to decide Yoon's case, and a preliminary hearing has been set for the 27th of December.
Yoon and some of his close allies face possible life imprisonment or even death penalty if found guilty. He remains under an international travel ban. Yoon's presidential powers are suspended until the Constitutional Court determines whether he can stay in office. If Yoon is dismissed, a national election to choose his successor will be held within 2 months.
Time now to slip into a short break, but before we go, here's a roundup of all that's making headlines across the globe. Take a look.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
West African leaders from the regional group ECOWAS meet for a summit with 3 nation members led by military governments on the brink of quitting the bloc. Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger reaffirm as irreversible their decision to quit the group. Human rights groups condemn police action in Kenya after hundreds of activists held peaceful protests in the streets of Nairobi against the rise in femicide cases in the country. And 160 athletes, including 40 young women, gather in the Kimana Reserve for the Maasai Olympics. The event serves to replace the traditional Olamayo, a Maasai rite of passage that involves group lion hunting for young Maasai men to prove their skills, identify their leaders and attract girlfriends. World of Africa at these times on WION. World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One, and this is World Day Name with me, Jyotsa Kumar, and my colleague, Him Kaur Surya. Let's start with the headlines.
IDF says sirens sounded across Israel as it intercepts a missile fired from Yemen. Air Force intercepts the missile before it crosses into Israeli territory.
Israel seeks the release of 34 hostages in the first stage of ceasefire deal, claims Hezbollah-affiliated Al-Mayadeen News, citing a Hamas official. Israel to release Palestinian security prisoners in return.
Will adopt a new constitution that will ensure that it is a social contract, a new social contract for all Syrians, and that we will have free and fair elections.
UN envoy to Syria calls for free and fair elections in the country after the ouster of President Bashar al-Assad, voicing hope for a political solution for Kurdish-held areas.
Britain unveils $286 million package of new military aid to Ukraine for next year, including drones, boats, and air defense systems. The move comes after UK Defense Secretary John Healey visits Kiev on Wednesday.
North Korea lashes out at the United States and its allies for criticizing its support for Russia's war in Ukraine, including the deployment of troops, rejecting what it called reckless provocation.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump urges Republican lawmakers to reject a cross-party deal to avert a fast-moving government shutdown as the White House accused him of playing politics.
American Congressman Sri Thanedar calls on U.S. Departments of Treasury and State to impose sanctions on those perpetrating heinous acts against minorities in Bangladesh.
Encounter starts between terrorists and security forces at Kader Bihibag area of Kulgam in South Kashmir in India. Up to 2 terrorists are believed to be trapped in the area. Operation still underway.
Kylian Mbappe finally finds his scoring boots as Real Madrid are crowned the Intercontinental Cup champions after beating Mexico's Pachuca 3-0 in Doha.
In a significant step in the India and China ties, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and Foreign Minister Wang Yi met in Beijing to discuss peace management along the LAC.
And also the revival of bilateral relations that have remained stagnant for over 4 years.
Now, as Doval met with Chinese Vice President He Jianzheng, Han said both sides should cultivate political mutual trust and gradually resume dialogue and cooperation in areas including economy, trade, as well as culture.
Now, the meeting between the leaders took place as part of the 23rd meeting of the special representatives. Earlier, Ajit Doval also met with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Beijing to discuss the India-China border issue. There was no special representative dialogue in the last 5 years, given the eastern Ladakh border route.
In his address at a symposium on the international situation and China's foreign relations in 2024, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that the two sides agreed to step up strategic communication, safeguard peace and tranquility in the border areas, and strive to bring the bilateral relationship between the two countries back to the track of stable development at an early date.
Chinese ambassador to India reiterated that China is ready to bring bilateral relations of the two countries back on track. He added that it is important for both countries to respect each other's core interests and work accordingly.
Now, although the Chinese statement had details of reaching a 6-point consensus as well as a mention of the 2005 agreement, the Indian readout had no mention of reaching a consensus. However, both countries did agree on cooperation in various areas, including border tourism in areas like Tibet, cross-border river cooperation, resumption of Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, and Nathula border trade, strengthening of special representatives meeting mechanism.
This also included a new round of special representatives meeting scheduled for next year. All right, and at least 13 people have died and 2 critically injured after a ferry capsized off the coast of Mumbai on Wednesday evening.
Now, confirming the casualties, Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis said that the incident occurred around 3:55 p.m. local time when a passenger vessel named Neelkamal capsized after colliding with a Navy boat. The Chief Minister announced that an ex gratia of Rs. 5 lakh would be provided from the Chief Minister's Relief Fund to the families of those who lost their lives.
The Chief Minister said that the incident took place near Mumbai on the Butcher Island, 101 people were rescued. Among the deceased, 10 were civilians and 3 Navy personnel. 2 critically injured individuals are being treated at the Navy Dockyard Hospital. The Indian Navy, Coast Guard and police deployed 11 crafts and 4 helicopters for the rescue operation.
Now, a spokesperson for the Navy explained that the collision occurred when an Indian Navy craft lost control during engine trials in Mumbai harbor due to an engine malfunction. The Navy said 99 survivors had been rescued so far.
Furthermore, the Indian Prime Minister has expressed his condolences in a social media post on X. Prime Minister Modi also announced an ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees for the next of kin of the deceased, while the injured would be given 50,000 rupees.
All right, moving on. Oman has stopped issuing new import permits for Indian chicken eggs.
And its impact is being felt by the poultry industry in Tamil Nadu's Namakkal. Egg exporters from the Namakkal say a consignment of Indian eggs worth at least 150 million rupees is currently stranded at the Sohar port in Oman.
Now, coming on the heels of a move by Qatar to impose weight restrictions on Indian eggs, exporters in Namakkal say their business has significantly declined due to the actions of these 2 key egg importing nations. DMK MP KRN Rajesh Kumar raised the issue in Rajya Sabha on Tuesday. He urged the centre to urge Oman and Qatar officials to resume egg imports from India.
Namakkal egg exporters have been facing tough times since June. That was when Oman first stopped giving import permits for Indian chicken eggs. After negotiations, Oman resumed imports in September with limited permits. But on Tuesday, Oman again decided to stop issuing new import permits for Indian eggs.
Now, at the start of the year, India reportedly exported 11.4 crore eggs to various countries, including Oman, Qatar, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Muscat, the Maldives, and Sri Lanka, with a total value of over 10,000 lakh rupees. With Oman accounting for 50% of those exports, reports say that the number dropped to just 2.6 crore by June and less than a crore since then.
Now, we've often heard people say that wine is good for the heart, and a new scientific study claims to have solved that puzzle as well.
Well, a team at the University of Barcelona found that a glass of wine every night halves the risk of suffering heart attacks and strokes compared with people who don't consume the alcoholic drink. The study claims drinking a bottle of wine a week could be as good for you as taking statins or cholesterol-lowering drugs. The team also observed that wine, red or white, has a much greater protective effect than previously thought.
The new research tested the amount of a chemical called tartaric acid in a participant's urine. The acid is a chemical naturally found in grapes that can be measured in urine to show how much wine someone has consumed over the previous 5 to 6 days. The cohort was a group of over 1,000 Spanish adults who were at risk of heart disease. They gave urine samples to measure their wine consumption and were also put on a Mediterranean diet involving lots of olive oil, vegetables and fish.
Now, compared with non-drinkers, those who had between 3 and 7 glasses of wine each week had a 50% lower risk. Meanwhile, those who drank 1 to 3 glasses a week were at 38% lower risk of heart disease. But now, here's a catch. The protective effect wine disappeared in anyone drinking more than a glass a day. The research team says it has gathered enough evidence on wine consumption by measuring tartaric acid in urine samples. Now, researchers also noticed it was crucial to consume wine during meals.
Now, the study sticks to the UK's current guidelines, which advise no more than 14 units of alcohol per week. That measures to about 6 pints of beer or 6 small glasses of wine.
And another interesting find is that women only need to consume half the amount as men to get the same protective effects. The so-called French paradox of why Mediterranean countries known for their love of wine have lower rates of heart disease has puzzled scientists for decades.
While wine might be good for the heart, experts have of course cautioned that consumption of too much wine is not good for the heart. The study says if you drink over 35 glasses of wine a month, this protective benefit of wine will quickly disappear and turn detrimental for your health.
Moving on, the pioneers of the first exchange-traded funds to invest directly into Bitcoin look to be in danger of falling behind in this record-breaking year for the OG token.
Now, Canada was the first country to allow Bitcoin ETFs in February 2021. As a result, global investors, including Canada, poured billions of dollars into the digital currency. Some Canadian crypto investors started to rethink their holdings after the approval of Bitcoin ETFs in the United States earlier this year. According to TD Securities data, Canadian Bitcoin ETFs have witnessed net outflows totaling 578 million Canadian dollars or $405 million this year. Crypto ETFs in Canada are the only ETFs to see outflows this year. However, a record $36 billion poured into Bitcoin ETFs in the United States. In the past year, the price of Bitcoin has increased by about 150%. After putting their money into Bitcoin ETFs in Canada, several Americans have moved their money to US-based options. The Canadian dollar's recent decline may be enticing domestic investors to keep their holdings in the nation.
Vlad Tasevsky, head of asset management at Purpose Investments, said larger US and international investors who actually prefer now to use the US ETFs because those are the markets where they predominantly trade all their other exposures. Tasevsky added, but that would have been expected because in the end, we know that the US are the biggest global capital markets. That's where most of the liquidity is.
All right, and last day, Elon Musk's philanthropic foundation amassed $9.5 billion in assets and distributed $237 million in contributions.
Now, however, the vast majority of these funds were directed towards other organizations under Musk's control. And this is based on Bloomberg's analysis of the latest recent tax filing of the Musk Foundation. Take a look at this next report as we decode Musk's donations over the last few years.
Musk's charitable foundation sent most of its million to his own entities. According to the latest annual report, $137 million were funneled to Musk's other charity, the foundation. This non-profit firm, which Musk founded to build a primary and secondary school with a STEM concentration, benefited from the millions of shares of Tesla it owns. Another charitable organization that Musk practically controls, Fidelity Charitable, received $25 million from the foundation. It is hard to tell if the tens of millions of dollars that Musk sends annually to donor-advised funds have made it to operational charities. That is, unless beneficiaries come clean. Nearly $140 million has been transferred by Musk to the donor-advised funds he oversees at Fidelity Charitable and Vanguard Charitable since 2016. Several Texan groups linked to education, Boston University, the Air Force and Society, and the X Prize Foundation were among the recipients of Musk's donations. As part of his enormous and ever-expanding empire, Musk owns an automaker, rocket firm, social networking platform, and now a significant political apparatus. Musk's net worth soared beyond $400 billion. This is based on the Bloomberg Billionaires Index report following an insider sale of shares in his privately held SpaceX. Despite Musk's increased wealth, his philanthropy has been rather low-key. He revealed a total of almost $559 million over the previous 3 years, with the largest donation coming in 2023. The Silicon Valley Community Foundation, on the other hand, distributed $4.7 billion in grants in 2023 from its $13.6 billion in assets. Annually, foundations are required by the IRS to distribute an average of 5% of their assets. Musk has failed to meet that standard. Despite the foundation's increasing riches throughout the years, he has maintained a limited crew size. He and his fixer, Jared Birchall, are among the same small group of individuals included in the team. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
Right, next up, let's take a look at all the developments from the world of technology. China has completed a major milestone in the construction of the world's largest transparent spherical neutrino detector at the Jiangmen Underground Neutrino Observatory in Guangdong. Neutrinos are the oldest and most primitive elementary particles that have existed since the beginning of the universe. The 12-story tall acrylic sphere, installed 700 meters underground, will study neutrinos, tiny ghost-like particles that are key to understanding the universe. The detector features 45,000 photomultiplier tubes to capture the faint light produced when neutrinos interact. Juno, set to begin operations in 2025, aims to reveal the secrets of the universe's fundamental forces and particles, with plans for at least 30 years of research.
A 67-year-old woman in Malaysia has lost over $500,000 in a decades-long online love scam. The scam began in October 2017 when she met a man on Facebook who claimed to be an American businessman in need of financial help to move to Malaysia. Over the years, the scammer repeatedly requested money for personal and business reasons. The woman transferred funds over 300 times to 50 different bank accounts, including loans from family and friends. The victim claimed that she never saw the man in person or via video call. She only realized she had been scammed after sharing her experiences with a friend.
AI, our intelligent companion in the digital world, it is a treasure trove of instant knowledge. But off later, AI firms face legal music for training these intelligent machines using already written literature articles. Now, what is the way out? Well, now UK proposes letting tech firms use copyrighted work to train AI. New system would allow tech firms like Google and OpenAI to use copyrighted works for their training. While tech organizations have welcomed the move, creatives, including authors and artists, have raised concerns. They say it could undermine their rights and livelihoods, with some calling the proposal untested and unfair. However, the government argues that such measures will resolve ongoing conflicts between AI companies and creators, promoting transparency and innovation.